Hey guys, it's Bree here with Blossom and Branch, and today I wanted to show you one of my favorite perennial flowers in the cutting garden, and that's yarrow. Yarrow makes a really great cut flower, and it's one of our favorites here because it gets these nice long stems and it has a really good vase life. It also tends to hold up really well in the heat. It's a heat-loving flower. So for us here in Colorado, we tend to get temperatures up into the triple digits quite often in the summertime, and we're also very dry. So if you have a dry area, yarrow is a great plant for you. If you have a wetter climate, yarrow might not be right for you because actually we have found that it really prefers not to be wet. And when we cut it down, we'll usually get a second bloom if we don't overwater it. So actually we don't even irrigate this entire row. So we've made sure that we have other dry living things here like salvia. They really do prefer a drier soil, especially if you want that second bloom. Yarrow is a little bit confusing when we're talking about whether it's native or not. There are varieties that are native here to North America, but mostly what we grow here are cultivars. So that means that they've been bred to have certain genetics, which is why we have some different colors here that you probably haven't seen before. You can see we have a few different colors here growing. We do have some of the white, and this is this straight native. It's gotten quite tall because we've packed them in quite tightly. We also have this beautiful one, which is Firefly Peach. It kind of comes in these different tones, and when it first opens, it's a darker color. And then as they open up, they turn this lighter peach. So it's a really nice mix, especially when you have them clustered all together in a bouquet. And we space them quite tightly. So one of the things I often get asked is spacing. And when we first planted these, we actually planted them a little tighter than recommended. This is a 9-inch spacing. So we planted them closer together. The theory on that being that they're gonna help hold each other up. So one of the problems with yarrow in the garden can often be that they get really floppy. And you can see that actually happening down here. So let's move down the row. And people ask me all the time, how do you keep your yarrow from flopping? A lot of it honestly comes down to varietal. So as you can see, this Firefly Peach tends to hold its shape much better. You really don't see any flopping happening with this one at all. Versus this is actually a cottage pink, part of the Colorado variety. And you can see that this one is a little bit taller and it's also flopping a fair amount. Cutting this one is very simple. We just cut it almost all the way down to the ground. And we usually do leave a little bit of the stems. Let's see if we can find some of the stems from last year. So this is another trick when we're looking at ways to help keep the yarrow up is we actually don't cut it all the way down to the ground. There's a couple reasons for that. There's actually some native insects that like to use the hollow stems of the yarrow as a nesting spot. And then the other reason is I find it helps give a little bit of stability to the yarrow the following year. So this kind of acts as a stake, and as the yarrow grows up and through it, it helps hold it upright. So we don't cut it quite all the way down. We cut it to about 6 inches off the ground, and I do wait to cut it. So yarrow will flop in your vase if you cut it too early. So we have to wait until almost all the florets on the plant are almost fully open. So you can see this is a great stage for cutting yarrow here because all of these are mostly open. Compare that to this one, where we still have some of these buds are tight, they haven't opened yet. This one will probably wilt and flop in the vase. So wait until the yarrow is fully open. And unlike most flowers we like to cut early in the morning when they're the most hydrated. Yarrow I've actually found is one that likes to be cut in the evening. For whatever reason, it just tends to hold better in the vase if we cut it in the evening versus in the morning, but you still don't want to be cutting it in the heat of the day. In addition to being a really great cut flower, yarrow has a couple other benefits. One is when we're looking at beneficial insects, and we've talked about this a lot, especially in our pesticide-free garden video, and how important it is to incorporate plants into your garden that are good for attracting beneficials, and yarrow is one of those. We often find that this is the plant that's covered the most with the little hoverflies and some of the parasitic wasps and some other unique beneficial insects that we don't often see on our other plants. The other benefit of yarrow is that it does have medicinal properties. Now remember, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not telling you what to use it for, but you can make tinctures from yarrow. You can also dry the leaves. You can use it to infuse oils. So it's an edible medicinal plant as well. Because we're getting a little bit of flopping now, we had a really rainy spring, so that's part of the reason why this yarrow has gotten taller than usual. So we might get some flopping over, especially if we get a wind or a rain event. So I'm gonna go ahead and corral it, so I'll show you how we do that. Here I have a variety of T-posts. They can be any length. These ones are the shorter ones because I don't like having them too high. I always worry I'm gonna trip and fall on them. So I like to have them buried down into the yarrow. I'm just gonna use a post driver. You should probably wear ear protection for this. Don't be like me. So one on that side, and then we'll do one on the other side, and we'll go all the way down the row. So I'm just putting these in about every few feet. Again, if you just have a couple plants, you could just do a stake down the center and wrap around the yarrow. Now, ideally, we would have done this before the yarrow was this big, but we don't usually get a lot of flopping with the yarrow. So now that we have all those in place, we're gonna take our twine and we're gonna go around the outsides of those T-posts just to hold everything in. I'm using hemp twine because I just find it holds really well. I prefer this over jute. I find that the jute breaks down faster than the hemp. So I'm just doing a basic knot. I'll go around twice, and then I pull nice and tightly as I go around to the next one. Over here. All right, now we're coming to our floppy ones. So I'll make sure these are all the way in. And this is why it's beneficial to plant them tightly, so that we can do this all together. They help hold each other up, especially once they're inside this corral. So now you can see they're nice and upright. So this just helps as they continue to grow, that they're going to be pointing their blooms up and not sideways. So if we let them flop, they kind of develop a strange shape on the stem, which is not great for cutting or for bouquets. And that's it. We're gonna go all the way around, and then we'll have some nice supported yarrow. It does tend to spread. So the one thing that I will say is that if you're planning on planting it in your landscape, make sure that you're giving it some space to spread, because it will continue to grow outward as it gets bigger. Make sure you're trimming it back every fall, and you can easily pull it out if it starts to go beyond its bounds. But it is one of my favorites in the cutting garden, and you can see how much the insects are enjoying it here this morning. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video today about yarrow. It's a really, really enjoyable one to grow. So I really hope that you think about giving yarrow a try. Remember to like and subscribe. It helps us out a lot here at the farm, and we'll see you next time.